I solved the meteor mystery. We're going to put on our We Believe in Space hats because right now we're at Cashman and Cashman Space Law, where I practice space law. But we have scientists kidnapping meteors. That's what they say they're doing. I think it also could be part of the DART program. We talked about NASA blowing up a little moon. They call it a moonlet. And perhaps the debris has been flying towards Earth, or maybe more likely, it's holograms, AI. We don't know what's going on. But what I do know is that I'm filing a lawsuit against some researchers and scientists who may or may not be in Ohio, where we are seeing and hearing more and more meteors. Over the weekend, there's been a new rash of meteors, new videos, new orbs, new UFOs, you name it. So I want to let you guys know that I am suing these scientists over what I'm calling meteor manipulation. As a space lawyer, I am filing suit against a rogue group of researchers who've been messing with near-Earth objects, maybe just right below the firmament. Specifically, they are nudging meteors and small asteroids closer to our planet. That might sound crazy to you until I read some articles. Some have already slammed into homes. As you know, I have a client who has a meteorite, alleged meteorite, that slammed through her roof in Texas and in Ohio, and also in Florida from a few years ago. This is a serious issue. It also could be debris from space junk that we are either experiencing some sort of space war we're not aware of, we're not privy to, that maybe different countries are shooting down satellites. But people are showing you online that they have rocks, some sort of space rock, they say, that has fallen through their roof. And we're going to cover all that. You guys know about the Open Space Treaty. You know about the Outer Space Treaty of 1967, and then the Liability Convention of 1972. Very real things. Go look them up. Anyway, this is not sci-fi, what's happening to my clients and what's happening around the world. It's a violation of international space law, and someone's got to stop it before we get a real disaster. We are heading towards something crazy. First off, we have the Outer Space Treaty. That was signed in 1967. For any of you out there who are new to the show and are not aware of space law, but this is a very real thing. It was a convention. Outer Space Treaty. It is the backbone for most of space law. And it is Article 9 demands that states and anyone they authorize avoid harmful interference. That's a quote from the treaty, and other countries' peaceful space activities. So pulling meteors in, that is, I would say, I don't know about you guys, that sounds pretty dangerous. You know, we have all these movies from the 90s about trying to save the planet from meteors, but now we have these mad scientists that may or may not be in underground laboratories in Ohio, trying to pull the asteroids and meteors closer. That is interference, rather. It risks satellites, orbits, and yeah, the people of Earth. Remember us, the people of Earth? This treaty also says that celestial bodies like asteroids must be used exclusively for peaceful purposes. That means no weapons, no bases, and definitely no dragging them towards Earth. Like, why? Why do you want to do that? We're going to get into it because they will tell us what they think is the reasoning behind this. We've seen homes get wrecked, families living in fear of meteors. And if you're wondering how scientists are even doing this, it's literally lasers, okay? It's lasers. And there's gravity tugs, they call it, these machines that are kind of like tractor beaming meteors down to Earth. And they're also putting stuff up there with experimental thrusters. And if we're going to talk about the DART mission, the DART mission that NASA did just a few years ago, they just sent a bomb. They were just like, we're going to bomb this little moon and see what happens, just for funsies. So we guys know about the DART, so DART would be the opposite of what this is. And as the meteor mystery just keeps trending online, more and more people are seeing things. Other people who track meteors for a living would say this isn't out of the ordinary. We're actually seeing about what you would see at this time of year for meteors, not because of meteor showers or anything, but they say if you look back at the stats, this isn't so out of the ordinary. What is out of the ordinary, though, is the amount of people seeing this stuff, videoing it, and hearing it. You know, these sonic booms. We had one in Philly, I think it was 2 weeks ago, that people heard. Australia, Germany. So you could say this is because there's just Ring cameras everywhere. Everyone's got cell phones now. And also because it's in the news so much, it's like a shark attack. You know, one shark attacks someone, or a dolphin dressed like a shark, which is probably more likely. And then everyone all of a sudden sees sharks, and there's shark attacks everywhere, and then something else will replace that in the news. But we are living in this alleged age of disclosure where we're going to get this information about UFOs. Trump's going to release the UFO footage, all these images allegedly. Everyone's talking about UFOs, extraterrestrials. We got Anna Paulina Luna talking about interdimensional beings. So, you know, if that is the narrative that we seem to be like following right now, it would make sense in that narrative for all of a sudden everyone to start seeing things in the sky that may or may not have been there typically. It reminds me of the beginning of lockdowns when all of a sudden everyone is looking up more. People are out of work. People are home more often. People are bored. And also the skies were clear. People could see the tops of the Himalayan mountains for the first time in decades because there was less pollution and fake clouds in the sky. That's what happened. So there was a huge spike in people claiming to see things like UFOs or paranormal encounters. But I'll also argue that it is possible that was it's not possible that this was a fear ritual. That was a fear ritual. But in times of fear rituals, they, as in the people, the humans of Earth, hear and see more things, I think, because there's a sense of trauma that was put on the Earth that I think makes people experience a lot more stranger stories, having stranger encounters. So with that in mind, people at the beginning of lockdowns were looking up a lot. And they were like, wow, we see way more UFOs. People who are big into UFOs and think of them as extraterrestrials in the Hollywood sense will argue that we were being observed more because it was a time of crisis, a time of change, and that would fall in with the narrative that they visit us to turn off nukes, to observe war. Perhaps that's what the old Nuremberg painting is about, where people claim it might be these shapes in that painting might be UFOs, and they were observing the Battle of Nuremberg. We went over that a few weeks ago on this show. It is a crazy painting. It's really cool, but it might just be shapes. Other people who don't believe in any of that stuff, but are more inclined to think it was a climate situation in terms of Nuremberg, the Battle of Nuremberg, will say that it was just like space anomalies, something happening with the sun, you know. But we have space law, okay? And people are experiencing something, whether it's from fake space, whether it's satellites falling, whether it's Iranian rockets, holograms, or AI, something's happening and they want you to believe in it. And there is damage being caused. There is something happening. Unless you know, so you could argue my clients are crisis actors and they've been paid off. And perhaps, you know, I did a lot of background search on these people and they seem to be real. But anyway, when it comes to the Liability Convention of 1972, which is part of the Space Treaty, if a space object like nudged a meteor, like if we sent something, if some state, whether it's Japan, who we went over, has a company that is designing fake meteors, remote controlled meteors. They call it space entertainment. And we talked about, we are suing them because they are a threat. That's like the Rainmaker guy, but on steroids now with meteors. But anyone is held accountable. The state is held accountable for anyone up there who is manipulating meteors or creating meteors. And that is absolute liability. So cratered roofs, insurance claims could pile up from that. But the difference being, this is not terrestrial, in my opinion. This is, I think, either debris from DART, Japan's fake meteors, or these scientists, like I said, literally trying to tractor beam meteors towards Earth. And we'll get into that. Just give me a sec. That's why I'm suing to force transparency, halt the experiments, and get victims paid. Look, space is not a playground if you believe in space. I know it's tough for a space lawyer to be skeptical of space. Just bear with me, guys. The treaty is there to keep us safe. That is fact, and not turn on asteroids and not turn asteroids into guided missiles. Okay, if they keep this up next time, it won't be a house. It will be a city, and it could be your city. I'm not completely anti-science. Mostly. I'm just anti-reckless. Okay, and I want, as I have said for years, to make the sky great again. We need to stop weaponizing the sky, whether it's geoengineering or attempting to drag asteroids closer to Earth. And there's the story. Here we are from March 23rd. And you can go back and look at many stories that deal with these scientists doing this ridiculous stuff. Space rocks are the new frontier in mineral mining, which I, as a space lawyer, can help you get rights to mine asteroids. So hit me up if you're worried about that, or if you want to own a planet, I got you covered. Whoever figures out how to do it first will make a fortune beyond all earthly compare. This is from Vice. Entities in both the private and public sectors are racing to figure out how to ensnare or land on an asteroid. Now, this one we have here is a Los Angeles-based startup, and they think they figured it out. And how? Do you know how they figured it out? By watching old cartoons. This is like Elon, looking at a lot of old sci-fi movies or old sci-fi novels and basically recreating them. I think if you can think it, people can eventually figure out a way to make it. But or someone like Peter Thiel just looking at Lord of the Rings and being like, I'm going to just name everything after Lord of the Rings. Palantir, Anduril, the list goes on. The company, which is this Los Angeles company, is called TransAstra, and it is absolutely the exact name a mining company in a sci-fi movie would have, says Vice. It wants to fly out to a small near-Earth asteroid, wrap it in what is essentially a giant high-tech bag, and tow it back to a stable orbit near Earth. The plan is dubbed New Moon. So before I continue, you see how this might also... all these things we talk about that we are reading articles and newer articles about is a lot of it, I feel this in my bones, is old tech. And they're just like, okay, you can tell the people now about the new moon thing where you drag the asteroids out because we moved on to way crazier stuff. So let them know, tell them, make them feel and sound crazy. And we've moved on to much crazier things. We're building moons out there. But they are targeting asteroids that are roughly the size of a house or about 100 metric tons of floating raw material. These rocks are packed with water, metals, and other resources. And probably bacteria that will turn you, give you a symbiote suit, and then we'll just have a lot of venoms running around. These resources could be used to, say, build spacecraft, fuel missions, and manufacture infrastructure in space without launching everything from Earth's gravity well. TransAstra estimates there are about 250 viable asteroids within reach over the next decade, with more likely to be discovered soon. The long-term vision is to create an orbital stockpile, a cluster of captured asteroids parked near the Earth's sun, L2 point, about 1.5 million kilometers away, essentially functioning as a quarry in space. Can we just sit there and think about that image of these mad scientists launching their giant space bags up there into fake space and collecting asteroids and then just kind of parking them somewhere between the Earth and the sun? I know. Suspend your disbelief. We're in space law now. It's kind of space law, like real law, is just a bunch of made up stuff that people just argue over made up stuff. But Trans-Astra is real, and they are saying they want to do this and basically create a landfill of asteroids in space, as if there wasn't enough stuff that we're just throwing up there and blowing up. The whole plan sounds absurdly, wildly, unrealistically sci-fi until you realize that they've already tested the weirdest part of it. The giant bag that they're gonna catch space rocks with has a prototype, and it was already deployed in space. I'm going to sue these guys for all they're worth. Trans-Astra managed to get a prototype of one of their weird inflatable space bags onto the International Space Station. Why? See, this is why we have space law. Why? Don't even think this stuff, you crazy people. This has got to be stopped. They even received a little financial help from NASA, so you paid for it, in the form of a $2.5 million grant to scale it up to a version large enough to envelop an entire asteroid. It is very cartoonish. It's like, okay, we got an asteroid coming to Earth. We got to save the people. Bob, what do you think? And he's like, I have a giant trampoline. Okay, we're just gonna hold. A lot of us are gonna hold it on the Earth's surface and just try to gauge where the asteroid's gonna hit. It'll bounce right back up. That's physics. That's how this works. So you helped pay for this giant space bag. That money was secured after the prototype was successfully deployed and operated in the vacuum of so-called space. If this works, it would mark a dramatic leap for the viability of space mining. In 2023, NASA's OSIRIS-REx brought back a little over 120 grams of asteroid material at a cost of around $1 billion. Trans-Astra is aiming for tens of thousands of kilograms while spending something in the few $100 million range. Those are their words. So that's that. Do you want asteroids? If you believe in space, do you want this to happen? What could go wrong, right? I think there's a lot of stuff that we're just doing in the skies. We know this, that is not good, that we can see with our own eyes, that they are open about what they're doing, whether it's geoengineering, the cloud seeding, or just spraying biowarfare on us for fun. I had this from the Daily Mail, also from a few days ago. Scientists are about to land on a potentially hazardous asteroid as it skims past Earth. You could also see how the idea of ancient breakaway civilizations could sneak into this type of thinking where people are like, we got to leave Earth. We're not going to make it to Mars right now because it's not real. We can't tell them that. But maybe we'll hitch a ride on this asteroid and we can attempt to steer it. That's something they've also been trying to do, is steering these things as they as in these scientists are looking for ways to throw off asteroids from the path that they think might hurt Earth. That's why they did DART. They thought this moonlet was going to hit us, and there's no way of proving that. It's like the vaccine argument. You just save grandma, but there's no proof. And now we have to deal with the alleged debris field that they say is going to hit us. Perhaps now, but some of them saying 2027, 2028. A private space company will try to land on the potentially hazardous asteroid Apophis when it skims past Earth in 3 years' time. Let's pause there for a second because we are getting into April. Let's just pull all this up. Give me a second. I'm going to type and talk at the same time. It is almost April, so that means it's almost the anniversary of the Apophis mission. And so Apophis, I want to let you guys know, first of all, is the snake god in ancient Egyptian religion. Apophis, I believe it was also referred to as the god of chaos. I remember Michael Malice giving me grief over this on IRL once. I was like, no, it's definitely that. He was like, well, in Egyptian, or maybe he was in Rome, but I'm like, yeah. But in Rome it's one thing, and in Egyptian it's another thing. These gods keep rebranding. But he also said that Gavin Newsom wasn't a demon. And I was like, I'm pretty sure. I've seen him in person. You can, somewhere on my Twitter, you can see me standing behind him taking notes as he's being interviewed by Rachel Maddow. And I saw the seam for the skin suit right back here. And if you open it up, there are 3 little demons stacked on top of one another inside the skin suit that makes the Patrick Bateman appearance of Gavin Newsom. And that's what it was. Malice was like, it's Apep, but Apep is also known as Apophis. Again, these gods keep rebranding throughout time, the same way the Romans took the Greek gods. And there's even some saints in the Catholic religion that rebranded certain old gods from like the old world in Britain, like Briton, prior to the Romans conquering it. So then when Rome conquered it, they took some of these old gods and turned them into saints. It's a woman. I forget the name of it. Anyway, usually Apophis is depicted as a giant snake. And in ancient Egyptian, it is also known as the god of chaos, darkness, and fire. And thus, this says here about Apophis in his bio, the opponent of light. Ma'at would be the god of order and truth, Ra being the bringer of light, hence the biggest opposer of Apophis, according to Egyptian lore. And there's a really cool painting of Apophis based on a depiction from the tomb of Ramses I. It's really pretty interesting. It's almost like the snake has made 2 infinity symbols. It's really neat. Because Ra was a solar deity, bringer of light, and thus the upholder of Ma'at, Apophis was viewed as the greatest enemy of Ra, and thus was given the title Enemy of Ra, and also the Lord of Chaos. The Lord of Chaos was usually depicted as a giant snake or serpent, leading to such titles as Serpent from the Nile and Evil Dragon. Some descriptions said that he stretched 16 yards in length and had a head made of flint. One of the earliest depictions of Apophis is a painting in the rim of a seaware bowl from the Naqada I culture, which is from around 4000 BC. And that's now in Cairo. That depicts the figure of a large snake in the company of other desert and aquatic animals and positions it in opposition to a deity, probably solar, who occupies a large boat with oars. This is most likely Ra, or an early version of Ra, and the snake is most likely Apophis. The few descriptions of the origin of Apophis in myth usually demonstrate that it was born after Ra, usually from his umbilical cord. Geraldine Pinch claims that a much later creation myth explained that Apophis sprang from the saliva of the goddess Neith when she was still in the primeval waters. Her spit became a snake 120 yards long, but Apophis was also commonly believed to have existed from the beginning of time in the waters of Nu, that's N-U, of primeval chaos. So I just wanted to give you a little bit of backstory. You can go look up, old depictions of Apophis. Very interesting. But NASA, that was the one that was basically the father of NASA being Werner von Braun, the father of the V-2 rocket, killed lots of people. More fear rituals. So just that is the background on the name Apophis. Keep that in mind as we are coming up on the anniversary of the Apophis mission, which I want to get to. I pulled up the wrong thing here from NASA. NASA website has a lot of Apophis information. Does that surprise anybody? Does that surprise anybody? But what I'm looking for is the fact that we sent rockets to the towards the eclipse in April of, I believe it was 2024. Excuse me. Here we are. Just want to make sure you guys are well informed about NASA worshiping the god of chaos. Okay? NASA, this is from OAN. NASA, and this is from 2024. NASA to launch 3 rockets on April 8th during total solar eclipse. Funny inverted world lore about that day. On April 8th, 2024 was the day that Alex and I went to visit the studio and have our first official meeting under the newer version of Inverted World, transitioning from the more narrated portions of the show to doing a show where I'm put in front of a microphone with and a camera, which is still completely unnatural for me and all of humanity. But we were in that old studio as the eclipse was happening. Just made perfect sense. Which is why Wesley, shout out to Wesley, who made the video intro for the show, has the eclipse in it. And we forgot it was even happening that day. And while we're in the studio, it was such a beautiful sunny day, and all of a sudden the studio just got super dark. Windows were open. We all forgot, at least I forgot. And then boom, darkness filled the room. I'm like, oh yeah, it's a solar eclipse. Went out and I stared right at it. I'm Trump with it. I'm like, it's all fake anyway. It's a green screen. But on this day, in order to better understand how the Earth's upper atmosphere is impacted when a section of the planet is darkened, NASA launched 3 sounding rockets on April 8th during the total solar eclipse. Oh, yeah. Okay. It's all coming back now. I think I did IRL with Malice maybe a week. It was on April 1st, right? Of course. It was on April Fool's Day, which is when the next moon launch is happening, on April Fool's Day. I can't believe we're going back to the moon. I mean, I don't believe we're going back to the moon. The rocket launches will be a component of NASA's atmospheric perturbations. I can't speak. I am literally brain dead. Atmospheric perturbations. You guys will let me know how to say it. I'm not even going to go back and try. I could delete this out and be like, imagine if I spent that much time going back and correcting everything I said wrong, there would never be a show. Atmospheric perturbations around eclipse path. Just put those words together really quick. Atmospheric. Should I say it again? I'm not going to, because that word just makes me uncomfortable. APEP. 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 The other name for Apophis. All right. So let me be. I can't pronounce things most of the time. I have ordered Ebonics, but it's just not here yet. The project was named after the Egyptian god of chaos. We know this campaign is named Apophis after the cosmic world serpent from ancient Egyptian cosmology. I'm reading a quote from NASA. The serpent pursues the sun god Ra and every so often nearly consumes the sun disk, resulting in an eclipse, a NASA website stated. APEP, okay, we know that. So just want you to keep that in mind, because around the same time as that happening, they were also reporting on this meteor we're going to talk about right now that they also called Apophis. So let's get to that. Near-Earth asteroid Apophis is a potentially hazardous asteroid that will safely pass close to Earth on April 13th, 2029. It's always April. It will come. My birthday's in April. It will come about 20,000 miles from our planet's surface, closer than the distance of many satellites that are in orbit. Whoa, don't you know? But by the time, so this was written. This is from like 2 years ago. They discovered it in 2004. So I imagine the closer it gets, the more they're going to say it's extraterrestrial or man-made, or whatever it is. They have to blow it up. And that is what's going to happen next. But back to this story I was reading from the Daily Mail from a few days ago. In echoes of the film Armageddon, when a team were sent to touch down on an asteroid and blow it up, scientists hope to send 2 landers to explore the space rock during its flyby. They're talking about Apophis. Apophis, which measures 1,115 feet across, was first discovered in 2004 and is heading in our direction from 140 million miles away. Calculations initially showed that it had a higher chance of hitting our planet. There you go. See, the latest one. The latest one is now we have a higher chance of hitting our planet. Older articles don't mention that. They like to point out that it's actually safe. So in April 2029, they say the potential for hitting the planet is up 2.7%. So let's check Polymarket. What is Polymarket saying? It'll go up and up and up. But if these other scientists from TransAstra have their way, they're going to be like, we got to catch it. Let's bring it in. Let's monetize this thing. It's like a new version of Slim Pickens jumping out of the airplane on the bomb, right? At the end of Dr. Strangelove. A great movie if you have not seen that movie. While the threat has now been downgraded, okay, next sentence, thankfully, with no chance of impact for at least 100 years, sucks for people in 100 years, it will still pass extremely close to Earth. You know they're going to keep changing this. And they're going to be like, it's changing its flight pattern. It's going to be 3I Atlas all over again. It's filled with, it's nuclear powered. It's got tiny probes. That's another theory, by the way, with these meteors, is people are saying that the meteors that people are seeing are actually the probes that they were saying were surrounding 3I Atlas and heading like in a flight formation towards Earth. This is post-reality. Whatever you want to be true can be true. If you thought it, I'm sure it's online and you can go find it and it will confirm your bias. Anything. 3I Atlas is whatever you want it to be. This is why when it comes to art, I always like to say that the surreal art, the cubist art, more abstract art is, I think, the appropriate reflection of what it feels like to be alive when you're living in a world of constant chaos and misinterpretations. And, even just personally walking through the world every day with all these conflicting thoughts and then online and in the real world, conflicting data, we're living in a state of complete and utter chaos, Apophis. And so post-reality is the idea that you can go online and just confirm any bias you have. The internet is a reality buffet, and it's been that way pre-internet when it comes to humanity. But the internet has accelerated it, and it's fascinating. Doesn't mean we should get rid of the internet, though. I love the internet. As Apophis flies by above our planet, 2 landers they will send to attempt to touch down on the asteroid. These cube-shaped devices, oh man. So we're going to send black rock type cubes. You guys know what I'm talking about. It's been, maybe it was towards the end of last year, we're really talking about the idea of the cube, right? The black cube that the Saturn worshippers have. There's a reason I think Grok image is the shape of Saturn. I believe Elon has said it's not Saturn. It's Saturn. Like, we're not dumb. And Saturn worshippers throughout history, and the black cube being like their idea of all existence, time contained in this black box. The Borg have a cube. Muslims circle a cube. The Jews, the Orthodox and Hasidic Jews, I believe the Hasidic as well, put the cube on their head. We have black rock. I mean, we talked last week with Jeremy Ryan Slate about the emperor, the teen emperor that married a black rock. I think this is part of the ancient evil we discuss on the show quite often, and that this is one of their representations, one of their symbolic gestures towards the way they feel we should contain mankind. The data centers are themselves black cubes. Anyway, just have to throw it out there. Also, brutalism. Okay, I'm done. The goal is to gain images from the surface of the asteroid, says Miguel Pascual, chief science officer and co-founder of the U.S. company X Labs, and he told that to New Scientist. There's some really exciting science that can happen. X Labs has announced that its mothership spacecraft named Apophis EXL has passed an important review phase ahead of a planned launch in 2028. It will carry up to... Sorry, I was checking for calls. It will carry up to 10 spacecraft and instruments from different companies, including the 2 landers. One is from an unnamed source, while the other is from Japan's Chiba Institute. Chiba. Chiba Institute of Technology, where it is being developed with the help of students. X Labs will deploy the lander, which is the size of a shoebox. About 1,312 feet above Apophis, where it will then descend at 10 centimeters per second. The camera will continue to take images as it gently touches down around an hour later. So I got to send a camera down, take video. They're learning from their mistakes with the moon landing, alleged moon landing. The landing will take place up to a week after Apophis' flyby of Earth to ensure that it doesn't interfere with the asteroid's trajectory, giving students the opportunity to design and fly hardware that will land on an asteroid is transformative, said the president of the Chiba Institute. It reshapes how we see engineering, science, and their role in humanity's future in space. The mission, described as the world's first commercial deep space rideshare, is being supported by NASA's Jet Propulsion Laboratory. All right, looks like we have to do just a quick one. Just a quick one. People connected is Jack Parsons. I mean, I'm just going to do this is quick, little tangent, but since it's brought up, we got to do it. From supercluster.com, the occult history behind NASA's Jet Propulsion Laboratory. I'm sure most of you know this stuff if you're tuning into this show, but it's worth going over. Jack Parsons, because again, April 8th, I believe, there's so many little tangents here. Just bear with me, okay? I believe on April 8th, okay, 2 tangents here, back to back. I'll try to make it quick. So going back to NASA, Apophis 2024, solar eclipse, rockets into a solar eclipse. That was on April 8th. It was also on April 8th that I'm having flashbacks to the Malice episode again because he gave me grief for mispronouncing Crowley. I say Crowley, he says it's Crowley. I have a hard time fixing that if that is the case, but I say Genghis, and they're telling me that it's Genghis, and I refuse to say that. It's like the guy who made the GIF. He says it's a GIF. I'm sorry. We are not buying that. Okay. Aiwass, I believe is the name, Aiwass, was the name given to a voice that the English occultist and ceremonial magician Aleister Crowley, take that Malice, reported to have heard on April 8th. Okay, but then he talked to from April 8th to the 10th. And this happened in 1904. Crowley reported that this voice, which he considered originated with a non-corporeal being, dictated a text known as the Book of the Law, or Liber al Vel Legis to him. He said this to him during his honeymoon in Cairo. We were just there. According to Crowley, Aiwass first appeared during the 3 days of the writing of that book, the Book of the Law. His first and only identification as such is in chapter 1. Behold, he wrote, it is revealed by Aiwass, the minister of Horparkrat. That's Egyptian, and more commonly referred to in the Greek transliteration Harpocrates, meaning Horus the Child, whom Crowley considered to be the central deity within the Thelemic cosmology. Simultaneously, Harpocrates also represents the higher self, the holy guardian angel. All right, keep that in your mind now. We have Aiwass, the demon, April 8th. We were talking about Jet Propulsion Laboratory, that's NASA, and its occult leanings. Crowley, talking to demons, April 8th, same day Apophis shot rockets into the sky for a solar eclipse. Egyptian gods, talking about Cairo. Now we have this from Supercluster, Chaos Magic, Aleister Crowley, rocket science. Jack Parsons was one of the most influential figures in the history of the American space program. He was also a Marxist, stood accused of espionage, and held a deep fascination with the occult. His interest in the supernatural went far beyond vaudeville magicians and astrology. By 1939, Parsons and his wife Helen Parsons Smith had fully embraced the teachings of the Ordo Templis Orientis, a central hub for, that's right, you guys already know, Aleister Crowley's spiritual and religious philosophy, Thelema. Why do we trust NASA? Why do we trust anything they've been telling us? Why? Literally, why? Aleister Crowley taught that a Thelemite's central ambition was to achieve a higher state of existence by embracing one's true will, or one's ultimate purpose beyond selfishness or ego. In pursuit of that goal, many aspects of Parsons' life blurred the boundaries between science and mysticism. As a Thelemite, he performed ritual magic, including banishing impure elements with pentagrams, invocating the power of the holy guardian angel, and offering daily adorations to the sun. So again, we have people directly involved with Jet Propulsion Laboratory, NASA, and not only today are we naming these missions, these rockets, these asteroids, these meteors after Egyptian gods of chaos in particular, the founders of this stuff were worshiping them. So it shouldn't be that insane to say out loud that they are still doing that, and that these things they're doing in the sky are part of their rituals. I didn't have it pulled up. Maybe I'll find it for tomorrow. But there was a scientist. I think she's a former NASA scientist. Maybe can we trust her? I don't know. But she was saying on some podcast that NASA is still performing weird rituals as they prepare to go to space, if they go. I don't think she said that last part. So all while pushing the limits in the nascent field of rocket science. Jack Parsons, for those who don't know, was born Marvel Whiteside Parsons. What a name. On October 2nd, 1914, to Ruth Virginia Whiteside and Marvel H. Parsons in Los Angeles, California. For the first 2 years of their marriage, the Parsons were swept into a dark whirlwind romance in the heart of the City of Angels. By the 1900s, Los Angeles had become a hotbed of New Age, spiritualism, and occult fascination, in which the Parsons were active participants. It was turn-of-the-century America's Williamsburg, perfect for the upper-middle-class pseudo-bohemian who wanted a crystal ball and matched their silverware set. That's a pretty funny paragraph right there in the supercluster. Jack's father was perhaps too taken by the city's attractive social loosening. He made his rapid exodus from California after Ruth exposed him as an adulterer who had frequented a local prostitute in the months leading up to and following their son's birth. Don't do that. After the newlyweds' bitter split, Ruth excised the elder Parsons from their son's life, both physically and legally, insisting her son to be referred to as John Whiteside Parsons on all legal documents. The rechristened Parsons was brought up by his mother and his maternal grandparents. Using their wealth from the manufacturing industry, the Whitesides moved Ruth and John, or Jack, to Orange Grove Avenue, Pasadena's Millionaire's Mile. Spending a majority of his childhood in solitude, Parsons soon found a personal hideaway in science fiction. Enraptured by Jules Verne and the pulp magazine Amazing Stories, those are fun, Parsons developed an interest in rocketry at a young age. By age 12. So just real quick, let's just fly over in our minds to Germany in the 40s and thinking of Werner von Braun, rocket engineer, building the V2 rocket, doing all that meth. All of Germany's on meth. There's that one point in the book Operation Paperclip, spacing on Annie Jacobson's book, where they're basically saying the Nazis are like, we need more V2 rockets. We need a lot more. They're only building a certain amount a day. They want like hundreds more a day. So there's like, take more meth, take over these buildings, and then force these people that we're going to conquer to build it. And that's what they did. And then there's crazy scenes in Nazi history of like these kind of glitzy champagne parties. They're little flutes of champagne. They're chilling. They got their sick outfits on. I was just thinking about when Kanye was saying he liked Hitler on Alex Jones' show, and Alex was obviously like, he shocked Alex for sure. And Alex like, you mean you like their suits, right? And Ye was like, no, I love Hitler. Oh, there you go. But he said, I love the Jews. And Alex was like, oh my goodness. And Alex's face just fell to the floor. Crazy times. That was when Ye was a presidential candidate. But By age 12, the future father of modern rocketry was conducting backyard experiments with his classmate Edward Foreman. The two boys designed gunpowder-based rockets with aluminum foil. Oh, I'm sorry. I got off track there. At these little champagne parties for the Nazis, they were chilling, they were drinking their champagne, and there was like these big curtains behind them in the stage, and they'd reveal the curtains, like big curtains, to reveal a V2 rocket. Then they'd launch it, and then just go bomb somewhere. What a crazy image. You know, everyone's on meth. Some Nazis are trying to communicate with ancient Nordic gods. They had their own thing. Like legit trying to talk to occult, through occult ways, talk to gods, communicate with gods. They were trying to bring them back and, maybe even time travel. And perhaps they're under Antarctica right now. Shout out Sergeant Payton. Or they're inside the fake moon. But what an image, though, to be at that Nazi party and be like, oh, yeah, and we have this V2 rocket right here. Let's open that up. The curtains. And then in front of Von Braun, you wonder how many people, how many deaths he had through the invention of the V2 rocket, and then him being hired from Operation Paperclip to build rockets for NASA, and but a very smart guy. And there are lots of videos, not lots. There's videos of him online talking, and we should. I encourage you to listen to them because they're pretty interesting. I think some of them are through Disney. Around the same time, Parsons was performing bedtime incantations to invoke the devil, another practice he learned from reading Amazing Comics. In an effort to straighten out her wayward son, who was so distracted that he started flunking out of grade school, Parsons' mother sent him to the Brown Military Academy for Boys in San Diego, a sprawling 100-acre private boys' school known as the West Point of the West. Before I even read that last sentence, I was going to bring you really quick to my old stomping grounds where I grew up, right next to the real West Point, for the U.S. Military Academy. And I grew up in Highland Falls, right outside on a farm above the Hudson River. And because this Brown Military Academy for Boys reminded me that just on the other side of our mountain, which would be Storm King Mountain, on the other side of Storm King Mountain was Cornwall. And in Cornwall, on the border of like Cornwall and Newburgh, New York, was a boys' academy, NEMA. I almost spaced on the name. It was NEMA, N-Y-M-A, I believe. I don't even know if it exists anymore. But do you know who went to NEMA as a boy? Anyone? I want to leave you a few seconds here to leave it in the chat if you know where this is going. I'm not saying this is all connected. It's just interesting to think that this also important person in our culture was sent away to a boys' academy. You don't hear that much anymore, people being sent away. But it is, of course, President Donald Trump who went to the New York Military Academy. When I lived in Cornwall, I lived very close to it. It's a beautiful property. I think it's in disrepair now. Last I checked, someone might have taken it over now. But Trump, as a boy, went to NEMA. So anyway, I was just going to say that. It didn't work. Parsons was expelled for blowing up toilets. With a renewed confidence that only vandalizing private property can give, Parsons resumed his work engineering experiments at home with a brief stint back in school and a year at Stanford University. Parsons was forced to take up working weekends, holidays, and eventually full-time employment at the Hercules Powder Company after his family experienced financial losses during the Great Depression. He was no older than 19 at that time. Directly dealing with chemicals and munitions, Parsons did not only learned more about the properties of gunpowder and its potential as a rocket propellant, but he also occasionally stole materials from work for his family and Foreman's experiments. Parson and Foreman continued these after-hour experiments well into their late 20s. I was going to go on another tangent, but I want to get through this. Just thinking of gunpowder now and how that would connect to the DuPonts who escaped France during the Revolution. They didn't want their heads chopped off. They came here and they made the gunpowder for like every American war. They basically owned Delaware. One of my favorite episodes on this channel was my interview with Destiny Resendez. She went fairly viral about a year ago for a video she made about the Bidens, the Hunter Biden, Beau Biden, and how Beau Biden was investigating all these child molestation cases, which were insane, that I never knew about. And one of the people Beau Biden was going after was one of the heirs to the DuPonts who raped his own kid. Insane story. That's an insane story. The whole story is insane. Anyway, by 1933, it's always 33, Parsons had constructed his first solid fuel rocket engine. He was only 29 years old. His boyhood interest in magic and the supernatural only grew stronger as he delved further into rocket science. That same year, Parsons turned his Orange Avenue estate into a bohemian haven, renting rooms out to artists, occultists, and dropouts galore. In 1934, Jack Parsons and Edward Foreman met PhD candidate Frank Molina at a public Caltech lecture. The trio soon managed to impress Molina's supervising professor, Dr. Theodore Van Karman, enough that he allowed the young engineers to conduct experiments at the university's Guggenheim Aeronautical Laboratory. I ran into a really interesting aerospace guy this weekend who gave me some insight into other ways that the airplanes are putting poison in the sky, and they're all doing it through particulate that comes out a certain type. I need more information on that before I can delve deeper into it. It's like I can't even find anything online. Really interesting, fascinating story. With access to Caltech's resources and equipment, the trio formed the GALCIT, G-A-L-C-I-T. That's after Guggenheim Aeronautical Laboratory. Thus, the blueprint for NASA's Jet Propulsion Laboratory was born. Okay, we don't have to get into the rest, as I have other stuff I want to get into, but a little side quest there. When we're talking, just because I mentioned the Jet Lab in that story with the Daily Mail, so let's get back to that. We were talking about Apophis, the god of chaos. We've named an asteroid after it. We've named a rocket mission after it. By we, I mean NASA. People like to even point out, look, it's Monday. I got lots of tangents. I hope you're bearing with me. I hope you had a great weekend. But people like to point out, by people I mean me, I'm one of them, that the NASA logo looks like it might have a serpent's tongue in it. It is a forked red image that cuts through NASA. We just got done talking about Apophis, right? The snake. Maybe I'm just crazy, guys. Maybe I'm just insane. I don't know. We know these people are crazy, though. I just read to you the guy who started the Jet Propulsion Laboratory talking to the devil. X Labs says its model. So back to landing on Apophis, the meteor or asteroid. X Labs says its model can dramatically reduce costs and barriers to participation. We're working to overcome the barriers that have long kept deep space exploration in the hands of only the largest space agencies. So I'm all for not gatekeeping, but if we're going to pretend space is real and we're going to pretend these meteors are coming to us, I'm not sold on it. Also, I'm a human and I don't know anything, but can you imagine everyone having this ability and being like the people who might have worn a suicide vest, or the people who do mass murders and then kill themselves? Imagine the future of those situations. We're like, all right, I'm just gonna cry. I got this tractor beam. I built it in my garage. I am going to bring the meteor down on this planet. I've had enough. And it's just everyone can do it. That is kind of the future with everything. With everything they invent, eventually it becomes easy for anyone to have it. We should all have rocket launchers. That's my opinion, though. But should we all have? Do you guys think? There's another thing we should ask you guys. Should we all have the ability to have tractor beams to bring meteors down to Earth, or not? Do you believe in space and meteors, or is this all fake? I tend to think the latter, but as a space lawyer, I can't say that publicly. Thankfully, I'm just saying it right now in this house, and no one's listening. Right? No one's there. Let me know if you're here. say what's up. We're working to overcome the barriers that have long kept deep space exploration in the hands. Okay, so they're trying to not gatekeep it anymore, and that will work out well. There are likely dozens of advanced space-qualified instruments sitting in clean rooms around the world, flight spares, experiments from missions that never launched, or amazing instruments developed by college students. So we'll see. We'll track that. We will keep tracking that. As we do. What was this? I had this pulled up. I don't know what this was even about, but since we're talking about it, I must have found this on Friday, and I already forgot what this one was, but I pulled it up, and I like the title. Has something changed in the near-Earth meteoroid environment? The first quarter of 2026 has produced what appears to be a significant surge in large fireball events. The data drawn from the AMS database going back to 2011 shows a pattern that warrants serious investigation. Here is what the numbers say, what they don't say, and what we need to find out. This is from the amsmeteors.org. I wanted this because it's just like a separate angle, a way to look at all this stuff. Since the start, but obviously these are space believers. So, since the start of 2026, the AMS has been fielding a growing number of inquiries from journalists, scientists, and the public about whether fireball activity has increased. The short answer is yes, but the details matter. We went to the data to understand exactly what has changed and, just as importantly, what hasn't. The AMS Fireball reporting system has been in continuous operation since 2005 and reached maturity around 2016, 2018, with annual Q1 events totals stabilizing in the range of 1,100 to 1,400 events. What follows is an analysis of Q1 data from 2011 to 2026, with particular attention to the 2021 to 2026 window, where the reporting platform has been fully stable. I wonder if they will account for the rate of everyone having cell phones or Ring cameras, something like that, and AI. Like, I'm curious how they can even tell these days when they're looking at something, because maybe it's all AI. The most important finding from our analysis is that the total number of fireball events is not dramatically unusual. Q1 2026's 2,046 total events is the highest on record, but only marginally above 2022, which was 2,037, and 2021, 1,947. If this were simply a matter of more people filing reports, we would expect a proportional increase above all witness count thresholds. But that is not what they're seeing. At the 25 plus report threshold, 2026 has produced 61 events versus a 2021-2025 average of roughly 43. That's up about 42%. At 50 plus reports, 2026 has 38 events versus an average of 18, more than double. And at 100 plus, the count of 14 is twice the average of 7. The signal gets stronger as the threshold rises, which is the hallmark of a genuine physical change in the incoming material, not a reporting artifact. And you look at the numbers, they've just increased every year, give or take. I mean, 2016 has 20 more than 2017 of total events. From 2019, I'm looking for the COVID years here to see if this affected anything like I was talking about earlier. 2019, there was 1,385. 2020, there was about 100 more. 2021, there was 500 more. In 2022, there was 100 more, bringing us around just over 2,000. And then 2023, 2024, 2025 all dipped to the top, around between 1,700 and 1,800 on average. And now, so far, 2026, we're at 2,046. And again, these are all from Q1. So, the beginning of the year. So that's interesting to look at. I think we're creating, I don't say hysteria yet, but it's getting there. And people are looking more, but also people are creating more AI. All right, enough of the meteors for now. That was an hour on meteors, but I think it's really interesting because what I see it as is part of this narrative shift and everything moving towards extraterrestrial, supernatural, not God, as it should be, but we're moving, although some people are trying to bridge that gap, but I think a lot of those people, I don't trust them. These types who are trying to make it sound like this is a godly thing. For me, that's just not my interpretation of the Bible. I think everything God made is here, and the earth is beautiful and unique. And I think man has been trying for at least a century, modern man. Obviously, this has been happening since the fall of man, but modern man for about a century trying to find ways to use, like science TM, fake science, because there's good science, obviously, but weaponizing science against the divinity of earth, of creation, and our connection, our relationship to God by constantly trying to rewrite history. We're 1 billion years old. We're 1 million years old. Earth is a gazillion years old. They're always changing something. And it's, for me, like the age of the earth, all this stuff, it seems like it's a way to make them build their new religion and have people buy into that. And even making people who think they're Christian or who know they're Christian, but making them second guess their interpretations of the Bible and being like, okay, well, I believe in God, but maybe everything is 10 billion years old. Maybe there is space, all this stuff. But I think it's all to make you feel smaller and disconnected from the divine. Anyway, something else that will make you feel small and completely disconnected from the divine is this next story. Scientists cloned a mouse, then cloned the clone, and kept doing that. And the headline here from Futurism says the results were horrific. And they were. Here's the cautionary tale that you didn't know you needed. Cloning the same mouse in perpetuity will produce horrific affronts to mammalian biology. A team of researchers in Japan discovered this firsthand. In a stunning experiment lasting 2 decades, they cloned a female mouse and then cloned its clones for 58 successive generations, but over 1,200 clones later, the experiment stopped because by that last generation, the mice kept dying immediately after being born, despite displaying no outward physical abnormalities. The findings published in a new study in the journal Nature Communications suggest that there's a hard limit to duplicating mammals. I'm sure they'll fix this at some point. And to scientists hoping for infinite cloning, this came as a major letdown. Oh, so sorry. We got scientists we're dealing with trying to rip giant rocks out of the sky. And we have these people who want to infinitely clone mice. We do not need to infinitely clone mice. You don't need to do this. We don't. And they're not just stopping at mice. They're like, all right, where's little Jimmy? Someone bring in Jimmy. We know he was aborted allegedly, but we kept him. We put him together in a lab beneath what was that? There was a college in Pennsylvania that they found these aborted fetuses that they didn't know these scientists were experimenting on. But ever since I heard that story, and there's testimony about that, it's insane. I'm like, they've been taking aborted children, these sacrificed children, and like doing their own science version of a resurrection, or not, or just studying them. But I think they've been bringing some of these things back to life, these babies back to life, and turning them into chimeras. We know that China has attempted to do chimeras, and we know we've done it. I mean, we don't know we've done it, but if China's doing it, we're constantly in a cold war with either China or Russia. Whatever they're doing, we're doing. And they're always so worried about China taking or beating us at AI, but China keeps taking our chips. That whole story just falls apart when people try making that argument with me, but whatever. We had believed that we would create an infinite number of clones. That is what this person says. Wakayama, who's the study senior author at the University of Yamanashi. Again, I want to say that one more time. He says, we believed that we could create an infinite number of clones. That is why these results are so disappointing. At this point, we have no ideas for overcoming this limitation, he says. I believe we need to develop a new method that fundamentally improves nuclear transfer technology, he added, referring to a leading technique for animal cloning. This is old, like Dolly the sheep. We've been talking about cloning animals for so long. A long time ago on the show, we brought up the whole There was a panic for cloning in the 90s. President Bill Clinton had to come out and like ease the masses and say, "Oh, we're not cloning people," and he had to come out and say it a few times. And they created laws to stop human cloning. And around that time, there was the Raelian cult, who was like a UFO cloning cult. They said that they cloned their first person, which actually happened in West Virginia, according to them. Of course, of all places. And they named it Eve, of course, just like Elon named the Neuralink Eve, the first Neuralink in a human brain that we know of. He named it Eve. Technically, Noland says he named it Eve. That is the gentleman who has the Neuralink in his brain, who completely ghosted me on a story because I believe Elon told him to ghost me. But that's another story. If you want to read about that, that's on my Twitter somewhere. But we were supposed to do the story. I was ready to go to Phoenix, fly to Phoenix. He was in Arizona, and talked before he even did the Joe Rogan interview. And then things got weird. Between 2005 and 2013, the researchers recloned the mice for 25 generations and found that the clones were largely healthy. Oh, that's great. At the time, the study author said that they concluded that recloning could likely continue indefinitely. As the experiment continued, however, the clones began showing signs of trouble. Starting with the 27th generation, they became less fertile as they gave birth to smaller litters, and they also had larger placentas. All the while, more and more of them kept dying. By the 57th generation, less than 1% of the clones survived. By the 58th generation, all of the recloned mice died the day after being born, their precise cause of death unknown. I gotta stop for a sec. This proves that Biden was a clone. If they are infinitely cloning mice, this is what this guy is saying. They wanted to clone mice infinitely, copy and paste, and it keeps degrading over time. By the time they get to the 58th generation of clones, I think we finally have an answer as to how many clones of Biden there were. I mean, I think they probably started cloning him after the car accident, but look at the man we had at the end here. Sometimes he was a robot, sometimes he was AI, sometimes he was deepfake, sometimes it was Jim Carrey in a costume. We know this, but sometimes it seemed like a clone that was souring and that he had just woken up. Like when they trotted out Joe Biden to do the State of the Union, and he seemed like when he walked down from the long walk down to give the talk, I'm like, that dude is on meth. He looked cheery. He looked bright-faced, happy, and he spoke somewhat normally for the first 10 or 20 minutes, and they could slowly start to see the effects of the methamphetamines waning and his face starting to decay and, looking like just when you ever open up a garbage and you seen like a possum in there in the night, and it's just like got these beady eyes staring up at you. That was and I'm like, maybe now he was a clone. That was just the effects of a clone decaying before our very eyes. A recloned Biden, a recloned 58th generation Joe Biden. I think this proves it. And maybe what's going on with Trump too. Perfect Clones. That's a good name for a band. It's a good name for a band right there. I don't have the time to start that band. I wish I did. But that's a good name for it. Perfect Clones is a great name for a band. Anyway, perfect clones, it turns out, aren't perfect clones. Sequencing their DNA throughout the generations revealed that they were accruing small mutations over time that snowballed into larger ones, even though the clones were superficially identical. In some cases, the clones were even lost. In some cases, the clones even lost an entire copy of their X chromosome. It was once believed that clones were identical to the original, but it has become clear through the study that mutations occur at a rate 3 times higher than an offspring born throughout natural mating. What does ruthlessly cloning the same mouse tell us about our biology? Many organisms, like certain plants and bacteria, reproduce by essentially cloning themselves, but us mammals, which reproduce sexually, apparently can't pull this off without paying a price. Okay, maybe we don't need to do this. It seems we need an injection of genetic diversity to keep the whole bloodline from crumbling down. In cloning, all genes are passed on to the next generation, meaning that all defective genes are also passed on. Because all these mutations continue to accumulate, mammals cannot sustain their species through cloning. The apparent recloning limit could put a dent in a number of sci-fi sounding but already burgeoning ambitions. Livestock are being cloned to produce a perfect herd of farmable animals, such as cows that produce more milk. There's an entire industry dedicated to boutique animal cloning, with celebrities paying top dollar to clone their dead pets. We talked about that. We covered that. Tom Brady cloned his dog. The findings also don't bode well for a number of de-extinction initiatives which hope to resurrect long-dead species in part by cloning or bail out endangered ones through the same intervention. Okay, another question for you guys. Should we be cloning? That's one. And should we, you can see my thumbs healing, or should we be infinitely cloning? What do you think about cloning? I'm not a fan at all. I have one last story we'll do quickly, but I had two callers, in and out. They kept coming and going. I don't know what that was about. That's a bummer. We're using Zoom like we always do, and everything is looking good. Signal is great. Signal is strong, but for some reason they just kept coming and going. So if you are listening, I'm very sorry. I don't know what happened. Please try again tomorrow at 11 in the morning Eastern time, which is when I typically record these. I just wanted to go over this story quickly because we talk so much about the dystopian future, the tech state, the surveillance state, these tech vampires. We were talking about a lot about earlier Peter Thiel naming everything after Lord of the Rings stuff. He's also a big funder in the Clearview AI, which is a huge facial recognition database. They literally scraped every photo online into their database. And when they were, I don't know if there was a lawsuit against them, but I think there was a lot of criticisms, rightfully so, because even if you're in the background of some tourist photo, right, you're now taken, abducted digitally by Clearview and used. And I'm not into it, but one of these stories, now this is one of these weird, smaller local stories that you can see is the consequences of the surveillance state. And I imagine there'll be more stories like this. I focus on Lavender AI, what's going on in Gaza, how that can kill innocent people, this AI-driven death machine that Israel's using called AI Lavender. And they pretty much leave it up mostly to the technology to decide, oh, that's the name, that's the terrorist, we're going to kill them. They've killed innocent people left and right, lots of kids, lots of women. Ridiculous. We've talked about pre-crime. The UK has been launching this experimental pre-crime unit where they can scrape the internet and determine who might be most likely to commit a homicide. And then, it's just crazy stuff, man. It is not good stuff. But this story right here. Oh, one last thing really quick before I get to the story is when Clearview AI was facing criticism for scraping all that data, the CEO, I think he was a CEO of the company, said that it was their First Amendment right to do that. And as a corporation, they have every right to do that. And they were just using their First Amendment right. I just don't agree with that. And here's an example of how that can go wrong. Very interesting. Woman spends 5 months in jail after facial recognition connects her to crimes in North Dakota. This story just came out this morning or late last night. A Tennessee grandmother spent 5 months in jail after a facial recognition program connected her to a bank fraud case in North Dakota, a state she said she's never visited. Angela Lips, 50, was left astonished when U.S. Marshals showed up to her home in Elizabethton on July 14th, 2025, while she was babysitting 4 children and arrested her at gunpoint. This is on MSN, reported in the Daily Mail, all these places. She was then held in the county jail for 108 days without bail before being flown to North Dakota on charges including felony theft and felony unauthorized use of personal identifying information. And that's according to CNN. Court documents obtained by News Channel 9 show her arrest came as police in Fargo were investigating a bank fraud case in which someone used a fake U.S. Army ID to take out thousands of dollars between April and May 2025. But Lips's attorneys were able to obtain bank records proving she was at a local gas station in Tennessee ordering a pizza and using Cash App. At the times, police said she was 1,200 miles away in Fargo, North Dakota. Still, she toiled behind bars for months before police questioned her about the matter on December 19th when she said it took just 5 minutes for the cops' whole case to fall apart. Lips was then finally released from custody on Christmas Eve. After Fargo detectives, the state's attorney, and a local judge mutually agreed to dismiss the charges without prejudice to allow for further investigation. Fargo Police Chief Dave Zabalski has since admitted that officers made multiple errors in the investigation, but would not apologize to Lips. He explained, trying to see when it gets to this part, the first article I read, which wasn't long enough, said that they had her face using facial recognition, and that's how they were so confident in this. Seeing how far it goes down, but maybe it's right here. He explained at a news conference on Tuesday that the police department of West Fargo at a different city was investigating a similar case and ran the fake IDs through their in-house AI software. They forwarded that information to our detectives and then assumed wrongly that they had also sent in the surveillance photos with that photo ID, Zabalski said. As you can imagine, the photo of the fake ID that I use doesn't necessarily mean that I am the person that's in the fake ID. West Fargo police told Minnesota Public Radio that the connection to Lips's was shared with Fargo Police Department at their request in relation to their open cases. The West Fargo Police Department did not forward any charges to the Cass County State's Attorney's Office regarding Angela Lips's case. A spokesperson for the department continued. Detectives did not have enough evidence to charge any person of interest for that incident that took place in the city of West Fargo. Real quick. The cops in nearby Fargo also erred, Zabalski said, by not submitting surveillance photos associated with the fraud case to the North Dakota State and Local Intelligence Center, which is certified and trained in facial recognition. Officers have since submitted the photos at the center, and the center has since provided police with other potential suspects based on the footage. So they said they had her facial recognition from other police departments, but it turns out she had receipts. And now while I'm reading it, I'm thinking it would be genius. Don't do this. This is not advice for people to just... I'm getting a caller. See, this is what keeps happening. Can we go for... So hopefully we get this caller back. But imagine if she's like, okay, print out my face. You do the fraud. And then I'll say I was here the whole time and we're all good. Is this person going to come back? I don't know. It's been the same person a few times. That's a bummer. If you are out there, sir or ma'am, do call back, because I was getting ready to say goodbye to the good people out there of Inverted World. You guys rule. Thank you so much for... Last week was awesome. We had so many great comments, so many people sharing and liking and commenting. It really helps the show. You guys are the best, and I am grateful. That's what I meant to say, to all of you for your support. And I might have a guest this week. Might be Wednesday or Thursday. We shall see. But thank you all. I'm gonna filibuster here for one more minute and see if this person gets back on the line. I don't know what's going on with Zoom though. You saw last week that I had that issue in the very beginning of my interview with Jeremy. It just nuked my audio. And I typically don't have a lot of tech issues here because it's pretty low tech. So I'll tell you this story before I go then, while I wait and see if this person comes back. Speaking of low tech, I got recognized this weekend. It's always so strange. And it was at the strangest place, at Dinosaur Land in a spot in Virginia. I like bringing the kids to, but the lady who runs it was like, hey, it's the guy from Inverted World. And I was just like, this is so interesting, seeing as how I use my platform to denounce historically inaccurate dinosaurs that I believe should just be dragons. But it was very nice. But that place is really cool. If anyone's in that like area near Dinosaur Land, or ever traveling through, it's a great, fun little place to bring the kids. It's like, I think it's like paper mache on steel, but these really awesome statues of quote unquote dinosaurs. There's like fight scenes. There's like a T-Rex like biting a pterodactyl. There's some like a giant praying mantis just chilling. There's a King Kong, which is obviously the accurate part of the whole place. But I've been there like maybe 6 times. And it's always fun, and the people are very, very nice, and I like supporting them. And that's why I said to them, like, I like you guys, so I'm not gonna build a Dragonland across the street. I don't want to be competition. I'm gonna open up my own Dragonland somewhere else with my own paper mache giant life-size dragon statues. Once I get the money, if you guys want to fund that, hit me up. We'll make a Dragonland. But it looks like this person is lost into the oblivion. Might have been a scientist trying to hit us with a meteor. We'll see. Hopefully they call back tomorrow. But you guys know, again, I post the Zoom links to call in on my socials at Shane Cashman on Twitter and on Instagram around 9:30 or 10 in the morning Eastern time. I start recording around 11, and you guys are free to call in, tell me anything. I do post some things I might be talking about, but we don't have to talk about those things. You can share stories. We've got abduction stories, ghost stories. We talk about CERN, all that good stuff. Love to hear from you guys. Sorry we did not get to you guys today who tried calling in. I don't know what's going on. I keep looking down here hoping that something happened, but not today. And it's always the same link that I'm using. That's a lie. I started a new link today. And this one will be the one I always use. So new link. Find it on my socials. I'll post it again tomorrow morning. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. Thank you so much for the support. Hope you have a great night. I'll see you tomorrow.